Let me tell you about a man I once knew. He worked the same job for 20 years. Every year he said the same thing. Next year, I'll change my life. His name was Michael. He got the job when he was 22. It wasn't anything special, just a small warehouse job loading boxes and checking deliveries. But the manager told him something that sounded very good to a young man. Work hard, stay loyal, and you'll always have a place here. In the beginning, Michael actually liked the job. The warehouse was noisy and busy, but the work was simple and predictable. Every morning he arrived at 6, drank cheap coffee from a plastic cup, and started moving pallets with the other workers. After a few months, he knew the entire building by memory. Every aisle, every loading dock, every shortcut through the storage rows. The older workers used to joke with him. Some of them had been there for 15, even 20 years. One of them once told him something that sounded almost like advice. If you stay long enough, this place becomes your whole life. Michael laughed when he heard that. At 22, he believed this job was only temporary. Just something stable while he figured out what he really wanted to do. After about 3 years, something unusual happened. The warehouse manager called Michael into his small office near the loading docks. One of the supervisors had just left the company, and they needed someone to take his place. It wasn't a huge promotion, but it meant better pay, fewer physical hours, and a chance to start moving forward. The manager looked at him and said, "You've been reliable. We think you could do this job." But Michael hesitated. The new position required working in another warehouse across the city, and for the first time in his life, he said something that would quietly shape the next 20 years. Maybe next year. Michael told himself the promotion wasn't important. The job was stable, the pay was enough to cover rent, and every week looked almost exactly the same. At first, the years didn't feel like years. They felt like routines. Wake up early, go to work, come home tired, repeat tomorrow. Meanwhile, people around him slowly began to move forward. One coworker left to start a small transport business. Another finished night school and became a supervisor in another company. Michael watched these things happen, but he always had the same quiet thought in his mind. There's no rush. I still have time. Around that time, Michael's life outside of work began to grow. He met a woman named Laura at a small birthday party one weekend. She was kind, calm, and she liked that Michael seemed reliable. Within a few years, they were living together in a small apartment. Then came a car loan. Then rent that slowly increased every year. Michael started telling himself a new story. The job wasn't exciting, but it was safe. And now other people depended on him. Leaving suddenly didn't feel like freedom anymore. It felt like risk. 10 years passed faster than Michael expected. One morning, he looked around the warehouse floor and realized something strange. Most of the workers around him were new. Young guys in their early 20s, joking, complaining about early shifts, exactly like he once did. One of them even asked Michael how long he had been working there. Michael paused for a moment before answering. "Almost 10 years." The young worker looked surprised. And for the first time, Michael felt something uncomfortable in his chest. 10 years suddenly sounded like a very long time. One evening after work, Michael stopped at a small diner near the highway. It was a place many workers visited after long shifts. While waiting for his coffee, he suddenly recognized someone sitting at the next table. It was Daniel, an old coworker who had left the warehouse years ago. They started talking. Daniel looked different now, more relaxed, more confident. He told Michael he had started a small logistics company with a friend. It was difficult at first, but now the business was growing. Michael listened quietly, because for the first time, he realized Daniel had once been standing in exactly the same place he was. That night, Michael couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. After getting home, he sat quietly at the kitchen table while the apartment was completely silent. Out of curiosity, he opened an old drawer where he kept some documents and work papers. Inside were old employee badges, pay slips, and contracts from the warehouse. Michael began looking through them slowly. 1 year, 3 years, 7 years, and then he suddenly stopped. The dates on the papers were older than he expected. When he counted everything together, Michael realized he had already spent almost 15 years doing the same job. The weeks after that conversation felt different for Michael. Nothing in his life had actually changed, but he started noticing things he had ignored for years. The same streets, the same routine, the same conversations every day. One evening, he walked through his apartment and looked around quietly. The furniture was the same, the job was the same. Almost everything in his life looked exactly the way it had 10 years ago. And for the first time, a quiet thought appeared in his mind. What if nothing ever changes? One morning, Michael arrived at work earlier than usual. The factory floor was quiet, the machines still silent. He stood there for a moment and looked around the place where he had spent most of his adult life. 20 years. 20 years of the same building, the same job, the same routine. Not because he loved it, not because it was his dream, but because he was always waiting for the right moment to change something. And suddenly, he understood something painfully simple. The right moment never comes. Life doesn't change when you wait. It only changes when you decide.